We're down here at Ballos Precision Machine with Mr. Tom Ballos. Mr. Ballos, I'm so excited that you're going to help me with this motor, because this motor and me have been through a lot. Now it might not look like much, but we put so much tender love and care into that motor. See this down here, we've got a little ratchet there, you can put your extender in there, just a lot of little stuff. Look at these, where we welded up these, you know, to even the spread on the, we put a lot of TLC into this. And
it looks that way.
I'm going to entrust this motor to you, because we're going to get the Monte Carlo back out on the road, folks. This is Tom Ballos. Now, last week, he sponsored, tell me a little bit about what you sponsored last week.
Well, what they did, they had the modified tour come into town that's run at Southside Speedway. So you had the locals from Southside versus the modified tour, Rolling Thunder modified tour. So it was a situation that, since I was the very first director for the modifieds around here back in 1992, I kind of figured it would be good to try to get in the middle of it. So we put up a little something extra for the tour and the guys at Southside to run for. So it's a little $500 sweeter pot, I guess you'd say. So
well, folks, it really is people like this, Tom Ballos, who are behind short track racing, behind the show, and more importantly, he has agreed to take this motor apart and figure out why we have a nasty, nasty knock. Now, when you probably didn't see the show the time that I put the microphone down there when she was running.
No.
Well, it said, Leon Wheatley came by and looked at the motor and said he thinks it's a main bearing. Now, tell us a little bit about what he's talking about. For all the viewers outside, now, a lot of viewers know how motors go together, but for all the girlfriends, wives, whoever who don't, we're going to learn a little bit about a small block Chevrolet. Now, this is a 355 cubic inch. In fact, it's not. It's bored 40 over, so what would that make it?
358.
358 cubic inch of beautiful American engineering. Now, this is a GM product. And the thing that interests me, there's hardly any Chryslers or Fords running out there. Why do people go with this as a power unit?
It's the most economical engine to build. There's parts and pieces available for this right here for a fraction of the cost it would be for the Fords and the Chevrolets. Although Ford is getting the prices down some, as well as Chrysler, but they're nowhere close to being as economical to build as a Chevrolet.
So the people who are running the late model cars at Southside who are running Dodges, Chris Hopkins, Chris Dodson, and I believe Shane Lockhart now, all of those guys are running Dodges. They must be spending a lot more money than the other guys, do you think?
Well, I would say for the engine part itself, it's going to be a little bit more expensive because, like I said, some of the parts and pieces are not widely available as would be for the Chevrolet. So I'd say they might have a few extra dollars in it.
All right, folks, well, we're going to go inside with Stuart, the wonderful, wonderful motor surgeon who works for this man here. We're going to crack this puppy open and hopefully see where this nasty knock's coming from. So stay tuned if you want to learn a little bit more about how small block Chevrolet goes together from the best in the business, Tom Ballos himself. Yow! All right, we're here with Bubba down at Ballos Machine. Here's my motor, turned upside down. We don't see any kind of real bad knock. What do you think's going on with this motor?
Right now, as far as looking at all the bearings on it and the crankshaft, it still looks in pretty good shape. There's no real deep scratches or grooves in it, where if it had a lot of trash or material go through
Now, this is the other part of the bearing part. I don't know if you can get a close-up on that, Lee, but it looks like what I'm hearing is that there's some trash that's gone through this motor and possibly something let loose somewhere else in the motor. But anyway, we got Bubba on the case. Bubba, you want to give a shout out to any friends, family, whatever?
No, just like I say, bring your stuff on down here to Ballos Precision Machine.
And who do you work for down here?
Tom Ballos and Stuart Hodder.
And are they nice people or not?
Great people to work for.
Yo! All right, folks, we're here with Mr. Ballos. Mr. Ballos is not only a doctor, a surgeon, a doctor of automobiles, but he is also an investigator, and you've been investigating what's happened with my motor, and I think you've come to a conclusion, Mr. Ballos.
Well, the whole shop's been doing the investigation, so it's not just me myself. But looks like to me a foreign piece of matter of some type of steel got into on top of the piston, and the dude started dancing around and beat it up, and I guess what you were hearing was the actual compression of the piston against the squelch area of the combustion chamber, making the noise knocking.
Man, I'm so glad I brought it in. Now, what do you think would have happened if I hadn't brought the motor to you, Tom?
Well, eventually this little piece right here could have swapped holes, or it could have kept on beating up until you get a hole in the piston, or you could have actually knocked a rod bearing out with it too. So it could have caused some serious damage.
Well, I remember last time that it blew, I think it was the conrod itself came out of the side of the oil pan. Have you ever seen that happen before?
Yeah, we've operated on many of those too. Yeah, it happens from time to time. Sometimes, you'll get some foreign matter, or sometimes people won't change oil and will get gas washed, and next thing you know, it'll grab a bearing and spin a bearing, and here comes a rod through the side of the block.
Well, I'm glad to find out that at least there was something wrong. Now, just you were telling me a little bit earlier, what's the difference between a doctor and a doctor of motors?
Well, the doctor's always practicing medicine. We can't practice. We have to know, we have to figure out exactly what the situation is and go fix it. That's what we have to do.
That's right. I think people who work on motors don't get the recognition, because there's another thing about the difference between a doctor and a doctor of motors is, you know, if you're a human being, you go tell the doctor what's wrong with you, whereas these boys, they don't tell you much, do they?
No, all you get is somebody to bring it by and says it goes knock, 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 knock. That's all you get.
All right, folks, well, stay tuned for the continuing story of this motor, Mr. Ballos, and the number 66 car in the Street Stock Series at Southside Speedway. All right, folks, this could be one of the best moments of my life. I'm here with my new best friend, Tom Ballos, baby.
Only if it starts.
Only if it starts.
That's right.
Now, Tom, this motor here, when we took it apart, you found that little piece of metal in there.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about what you've had to do to the motor, get it back, fired up, and ready to go.
And what we had to end up doing, we had to end up going in and sleeving that one cylinder that metal broke loose on. Had to replace the piston and that.
So you put a metal sleeve down in the cylinder wall.
Yeah, what you end up doing, you end up boring it out, and you actually put a cast iron sleeve back down into it, and you go back out and bore it and finish it to the side, so it's all back to original.
Because I think this motor originally was 0.40 inches over. So you put a sleeve in there that was the stock diameter, and then you cut it 0.40, the same as the other cylinders, right?
Right. Basically, what you do, like I said, you go in, you bore it out to about 1/8 of an inch sleeve, 1/8 of an inch larger in diameter. Sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little less. And then you go in and you put yourself a cast iron sleeve, and you go back and bore it out to the original size piston that was in there at the beginning. Then a new piston went in.
Now, I know we found out about the piece of metal in there. Did you guys find anything else wrong with the motor?
No, didn't see a whole lot of other things going on. I think that you might have a little bit of carburetor problem, but we won't know that until you fire it up.
Now, when you put it back together, did you put all the same bearings and all that stuff, bolts and all that stuff in there?
No, it's got new bearings and things. There was certain things we did went ahead and freshen up a little bit. Even though it was.
So that's what a freshen up is.
Right.
A freshen up is basically you go back in, you replace the main and conroll bearings. I saw you put new bolts to hold the cylinder head in.
Right, yeah, new head bolts and all in the motor, just because, again, you don't know how many times they've been torqued, and so there's no sense taking any chances of something economical as a set of bolts. So you put a new set in, you know where you are.
Well, folks at home, that's the kind of stuff I like to hear. You see, if it was me, I'd have thrown it back together with all the old stuff in there and probably blown the thing to pieces. You got to have a lot of patience in this business, don't you?
Yeah, patience, they come into play a fair amount of times.
Well, patience is something I don't have much of, but I tell you what, the moment if truth is here, what do you think? You think it's going to fire up, Tom?
I think it'll probably fire right on up. I hope it will anyway.
Don't you think it's a miracle that you think at 6,000 RPM, a motor's turning, 100 revolutions per minute? Does it ever amaze you that these motors actually work? Oh, per second. So 60 revolutions. This, I'm talking really to the viewers that don't know about motors. I'm sure most of the motor heads out there know all this stuff I'm talking about. For the wives, girlfriends, the guys that don't know about it. 600 revolutions per minute. Does it ever amaze you that it can fire exactly on time, that the whole thing works? It blows my mind that a motor actually works.
Well, it's been doing it for quite a while, and engines, combustion chambered engines and internal combustion engines have been around for eons, so I think all the bugs were probably worked out 60, 80, 100 years ago, whenever it might have been.
They really haven't changed that much. I mean, the old Model T Ford had a distributor, right?
Again, I'm not quite sure on the Model Ts, but I thought they had a coil of some sort that they used, and matter of fact, I got shocked by a couple of them by a friend of mine's father. But anyway, yeah, they didn't have exactly the distributor. They had to have some kind of way of the distribution for the spark. So I'm not 100% sure.
But the basic configuration of the internal combustion engine hasn't changed much since the very beginning.
No, it hasn't.
Until they came up with the Wankel engine.
Yeah, basically all this is air in, air out. It's done by the air pump. That's all the engine is.
And a controlled explosion.
Right.
All right, folks at home, this is the moment of truth. Tom is nervous as all get out, I can tell. All right, this is the starter button. This is an amazing rig that these guys hooked up here, so we can actually fire this motor up right here and now. Fingers crossed, everybody. Let's see what happens. All right, Tom. Tom's man, Stuart here. Stuart has said that he thinks there's a slight problem with the carburetor, which may be why I've blown 3 motors, because I think if it runs too lean, it gets too hot, right, Tom?
That's correct.
And if it gets too hot, that's not a good thing.
No, it's not. That will end up happening. A lot of times it will end up burning the tip off of a spark plug, and that will cause some of the problems that you have.
Uh-huh. So good old Stu not only knows how to build a motor, but he knows how to tune up a carb, and these guys here are going to fix this motor from front to back. Now I want to let you guys know these headers here are not legal in my class, but they put them on because we didn't have the exhaust manifolds. But Tom, I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. This is awesome, viewers. Please, if you need any work at all, you've got a whole industrial side so that you can fabricate pretty much anything.
Right.
You can fix pretty much any kind of motor. Harley Davidsons,
Right.
Mitsubishis,
Right.
Chevrolets, marine motors.
Right.
He's even built this really cool contraption. It's like a golf cart which got this tower that comes up. Now, who did you build that for? The platform to shoot races and stuff from.
That was originally built for ESPN back in the 80s. They were having trouble being able to have a platform that they could actually shoot through without some part of the platform getting in the way. So we came up with a round design with a pie-shaped cage that rotated 360 degrees so they could be able to shoot all around with it. And to this very day, I think they're still using it from time to time.
Okay. So this guy can do pretty much anything. Welding, cutting, anything to do with metal, right?
Most times it's got something to do with metal, we can work with it.
All right, Tom, give me a high five, baby. Yo!
Go get
Tom
it.
Ballos, baby! Yahoo!
Go get them.